Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. Wow, my voice is going today.
Woo, that was
Uh,
terrible. We gotta hold on,
I,
redo that. That was
oh
yikes.
no,
We'll
no,
edit
I think we
that.
keep it in. I
No,
think we
we
keep
edit
it in.
this.
Oh
Sheesh.
man. So anyway, Front Row Back Row podcast with your host, Dr. Owen Campbell, owner of Simplify Motion in Phoenix, Arizona, and as always, Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution Physical Therapy in Connecticut and Long Island. Brian, you know how I'm doing, man. How are you
I know.
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. What's funny is we were on our mentorship call, like our mastermind call earlier today. In my head, I'm like, this will get me to be talking more because Owen's voice is no. Owen just keeps going. I mean, just keeps powering through. So he doesn't
Yeah.
care. He's like, if it sounds terrible, I'm in.
No, we're good, and so
Why
anybody
don't, why don't
listening
I
to
do this
this,
first read real quick to make it
perfect.
easy? I'll make it easy. And
Okay,
then
fine.
how's that? So Front Row Back Row podcast is brought to you by Physio Growth. You can take your PT practice to new heights with Physio Growth. Our mentorship program helps physical therapists grow their business and boost income. Join us at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group. So there you go.
Ah,
And I'll
that's how
save
you
your
do it.
voice a little bit
That's how
on
you do
there.
it.
There you go.
A
Exactly.
professional.
There.
All
Yeah.
right. So today we are going over Brian's terrible customer experience in purchasing a new car. Brian did not like what he had to go through, and it actually got us thinking about how this can really be a big problem, not just when you're starting a company, but also particularly when you're scaling. So,
Yeah.
Brian, I want you to kind of let everybody know
Yeah.
how awful your day was this
Well, and it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. Like I don't want to over exaggerate it that it was terrible. But here's the thing that I would explain to a lot of people, and I want to piggyback on it because I think that the whole idea I said to Owen as soon as we got on here today was I wanted to talk about customer experience, and here's why. Because it's so important. It's not that it will hurt your bottom line initially, but it can have a rippling effect down the road and hurt your scaling. So here's what happened to me. I'm buying a car today. And full transparency, I hate the idea of buying a car altogether. I just do not like buying cars. For honestly, I don't like even taking to the mechanic. I don't like any of that stuff because quite frankly, I'm skeptical about all of it. I'm skeptical. I don't like that I can't trust people. I feel like I don't know a lot about it, so I feel like I'm going to get taken for a ride. Realize that our profession is exactly the same for other people. So
morning.
building trust and barriers is so key. So anyway, I'm researching the car. I'm looking at what I want. I want something reliable. I'm getting a Honda CRV. Like it's one of those cars where it's just a reliable car. I got family. I'm not looking for something flashy, right? And I find a great price for it.
Dadmobile.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There you go. I find the car. I find the price I want. I find it with great mileage. Like it's almost new. I wanted to buy it used because I'm also a big believer in that the second you drive it off the lot, it loses its value, right?
Yep.
Depreciating asset, blah blah blah
Unless
blah.
there's a pandemic, yeah, but yes.
Exactly, right? So anyway, so I'm getting the car. I don't buy it from a dealership. I'm going to buy it from a used thing, which also everybody's like, oh, you should buy it from a dealership. Well, so anyway, there's all the things about being skeptical. Everyone's got a thing in your ear. And so I get the car. I finally love it. I love the price. I'm like all about it. And I'm driving it home and the alignment's a little off. And you know, when you're like, I'm like, oh no, like I want to love this so much. And like now I'm excited. And then I take it to my mechanic who I like and I trust. And instantly it's like, this is wrong with it. This is wrong with it, blah, blah, blah. And just instantly like good feelings gone. Like want to be all about it. Right. And so as I'm going through this experience, I'm also realizing that somebody's saying, "Oh, this isn't that big of a deal. Oh, it is a big deal." And like all of a sudden, I'm getting all this chiming in, and like I just wanted to enjoy the car. That's all I wanted to do. By the way, drop the cash on the car, whether you're doing a loan or whatever. So now you're like upset about it. And so all I thought about all day was how I like don't want to ever do this again. Right. And it's like
Mm.
if you think about it, what ends up happening is now I have to drive a car. I need the practicality of it. So it's insane. But I wanted to draw the parallel with physical therapy and think about what patients go through, right? Patients
Yeah.
go through, oh my God, I'm hurt. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh man. Now I had to derail my day. I had to derail 2 days really. Honestly, me and my wife got in a fight over it. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff around this crap, right? So the thing is, like when you think about that from a customer experience perspective, it's so important to like build trust and realize that even I liked the guy that I bought it from, like I thought it was good. And then I guess I'm driving back now. It's a great thing that I've heard that I like is you always remember the last thing that happened. So because of
Mhm.
this all experience, it just made me be super jaded to the point where I'm like, I'm going to drive this car to the ground. I don't want to see another car dealership in 15 years. I don't want to do anything with it at all, right? And so the reality of the situation was when I thought about it, I said to Owen, I go, think about all the parallels of physical therapy. People are scared. People want to come in for physical therapy. They're nervous about the outcome. Should they pay? Should they use their insurance? Should they not use their insurance? Right? Like, do they trust the provider? Is the provider a good physical therapist? Are they going to help me? Are they going to fix my problem? Are they milking me? Are they going to do it for 50 visits versus 10? Like, how's this going to go? And so, and then walk out the door. Remember, every single person is going to chime in. Plus, they can go on the internet and find stuff out. I just use YouTube and blah, blah, blah. Realize we're the exact same thing. We're the used car dealerships and car dealerships of the body, right? And
Whoa,
so,
don't go that far.
well, no, and I'm going to go that far for one
Bad
major reason.
connotation.
I know. And by the way, I'm a physical therapist who loves this profession, but realize that in the eyes of the public, that is what we can be. And I'm not, by the way, I obviously think higher of our profession than anything. So before we get ripped on
No,
social
no,
media,
but there's
right?
mills out
But
there. There's mills out there
yeah,
that are given that honestly people have had a bad experience
exactly.
with. And
Exactly.
there's a lot of them.
We talked about this in the past. It's not just about it's bad systems, right? That good physical
Yeah.
therapists or bad physical therapists can't thrive in. So anyway, my point being in all this experience was it just made me think more about physical therapy in my business, and the practice is like just always doing the right thing, even if it doesn't necessarily mean it's a cost effective thing. Now, the guy's trying to take care of me, he's trying to do the right thing. The saga continues. We shall see if it ends up being a good situation, right? But I can imagine that if you want to go back to the well and do something with a company, or you want repeat customers, particularly for private practice owners, you have to thrive in the customer service
Yeah.
business, right? That's what we
So
are.
so let's break this down, right? Because
Yeah,
people listening to this either might be where I'm at in my current business, where it's solopreneur, right? All the way up to where you're at in your business, where you're tweaking systems and the customer interacts with so many different people. I think an interesting thing there is you said, well, I like the guy, right? I like the salesperson. And I think the best part, the big advantage that a solo practitioner has is that they see everything from nose to tail, right?
yeah,
So they are the one putting the marketing out. They are listening to what the call is, in the discovery call. They're treating the patient and then they're following up. Now, the downside of that is that's a lot of work for a treating therapist, right?
yeah.
So as you scale and grow, that'll change. So like what advice would you have for like a solopreneur to be able to focus on that customer experience without it kind of, I don't want to say taking over, because I think being a good treating therapist is a lot of good customer experience, right? That'll
Yeah.
be the number one thing they understand. But like, what are some of the levers that a solopreneur can kind of pull that will help them do that, provide like a good customer experience and not the part that's in the clinic or not the part that's in their home?
That's a great question. I think, and here's the answer: is there's not a silver bullet answer to that question. I think there's a golden BB thing to this, right? There's lots of golden
Yeah.
BBs, and I think the first step I can hear my man Jerry Durham thinking this is awesome. The first thing is to make sure your front desk is awesome, because if your front
Yeah.
desk isn't great, I don't care. Like I think that
Well,
every
I don't have a
customer.
front desk. I don't
I
have a
know.
front
So
desk. So
we'll,
how do
we'll
I
get
make
there.
sure
We'll
I'm
get there.
awesome?
Exactly. We'll get there. So the reason I think it's really good, I remember when me and Owen first talked about starting this practice, I was like, you started because you learn everything from nose to tail, right? So the thing is, Owen is front desk. He is the aide. He is the physical therapist, right? And whatever the practice goes in any direction, right? And so I think, but having a really good front desk when you get to my level is super important. When you have really good front desk people, and I don't just mean like they're great with billing and they're salty. They have to be friendly and nice. And we have some really nice front desk people. They have to be like, again, I've had front desk people call all different types of physical therapy clinics and just take note of the way they're taken in, right? The take in. And I think it's really important to understand that if you're trying to, they are your front end salespeople at that point, right? And that's how it works.
Mm.
I can hear Jerry saying, like, absolutely, they're front end salespeople. They're like, you know what I mean? They're everything in your business. To me, when you go at a network or cash based, it's that much more important because they have to be that much more seasoned on that front. Now, where would I start if I were someone like you in that sense? I think when you start thinking about cash flow, depending on what you're trying to do, either you raise your prices to a point where now you hire a VA and that VA is really good, or you hire another physical therapist that's just as good as you at that front end side that can do that with you. Now, I will tell you, I think it's easier to find the VA personally. I think the physical,
Virtual assistant.
yeah, exactly. The reality of a virtual assistant or any type of hire is no one's going to do the job as good as you are. Just the reality
Yeah.
of it. No one cares as much about your business. And that's the other golden BB. Recognize the fact that you're your business and no one's going to care as much about as you are. And that's okay. That's okay, right? And like that is taking me time to figure out like That's fine. Like we will do, I will see the patient at 7 o'clock if I need to. I will, especially in the beginning, like, I'll teach the class if no one wants to show up. Like I'll do that. I'll do the sales meeting late. When people are like, well, I don't want to do that. It's like, okay, fine. But like then you can build, that's what incentives are for financially, is to try and
Yeah.
get do things that necessarily they need to do to grow. But then if they say no, it doesn't kill you, right? And so those are
Mhm.
big things I would say to people is think about front desk. And if you can't afford a front desk person, think about a virtual assistant that you can train really well. Or a physical therapist or somebody that you're going to hire on that can do the job for you too, as well as you can. But I just think it's an
Yeah.
unrealistic ask. And then also looking at, how essentially you can bring on that system in general. I mean, I look at it now,
Well, and
you
I
can control it more.
Well, and I think as a solo person, like it's great because you learn it, right? You learn all
Yeah.
these different aspects, and then you know a little bit about it, so that when you do hire, you can say like, "Hey, you answered the phone call a little bit salty, or, hey, we got to put some automation in place to like ask for reviews later, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't have the time to text them, right? So I think this is, anybody who's gotten to this point where they're listening to a PT podcast, they're trying to figure out how to grow their business, they've probably already done that part, or at least they've gotten a good kind of feet wet of like how to do it as a solopreneur. So like, let's talk now about scaling, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that any entrepreneur that is good at scaling is good at teaching and communication, right? So I just put together a course in our mentorship group on this about how communication can being good at communication will help you scale. Being bad at it will make you think I shouldn't scale, right?
Yeah.
And you won't know about that. And the biggest thing, the best kind of one liner I can bring out of that course is when I'm a solopreneur, I see the customer from nose to tail, right? So I go along that journey with the customer. But when you're scaled, you're going to have 3 or 4 people but doing parts of that journey, but the customer still only has one experience all the way through nose to tail. So you, as the manager, have to communicate and make sure that your front office knows what the PTs are doing. Your salespeople know what the front office and the PT are doing. Your marketing knows what is the thing that really customers love at the end on their exit surveys that's getting sent out by the front office. So these are all the things that the skill of scaling is to be able to do all of that and make it seem seamless to the customer.
I,
So I think
yeah, that's
that's
a great
that's an
point too.
interesting thing that I think you've done well with Evolution with your 5 clinics, is that you're still getting a good customer experience even though you're not in the clinic what more than a few hours a week, right?
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
these
yeah.
are these are
Well,
things that you can do at scale.
yeah, and to give you an idea to Owen's point, it's not that I'm not in the clinic more than a few hours a week. I'm
I
constantly
just
working on
think
our
you're
business.
lazy, that's
I
why.
yeah. So because I would say I made the comment in our mastermind group today that this isn't a passive career, right? It's not like I'm not hands on. Even if I'm not there, I'm calling people. I'm working on my business. Like it's impossible to make it fully passive. And I think that if you make it fully passive, you will notice the quality and the customer service will go poorly. I do. I
Yeah.
can think of a course like honestly, this is not to plug our own stuff, but physio growth is where PTs turn and they're passionate to profit. So get expert mentorship to expand your practice and achieve financial freedom. Start at school.physio. There you go. I'm Owen now. School.com/physio growth mentorship group. And the reason I'm going to
I
bring
love
this up is I signed up for a mentorship group or some sort of course building thing. And quite frankly, it was here's the stuff, and there was nothing else associated with it. No customer service, no handoff, and I spent like $8,000 on it. I was pissed because I was like, now I'm kind of stuck and I don't know what to do, and there was no real hand holding to help me that made any sense. We fixed that with our mastermind groups, by the way. Again, that was not supposed to be a shameless plug. That actually, well, sort of, I guess it was. But I guess in terms of the mastermind,
you did have an ad read in the middle of it, yeah.
exactly. In terms of the mastermind group, that's something that I think was so important for like our members in our group is here's how to apply it in the constant evolution of changing that's going on.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I have found that I'm constantly doing with my business is trying to do different touch points with everybody. So what happens is it's like I heard this correction that in a book that I read. It's more like if you have the boat moving in the right direction, right? And you're adding on different people. Think of like an old style, like Vikings type boat, right? Like out of
Yeah.
Troy, where there's different guys rowing, and you're just adding people into the rowing. As long as you're steering the boat in the right direction and yelling the right commands of keeping people in the right direction, all you need to do is little rudder corrections as the owner now, as you start to get to
Yeah.
bigger positions. But if you've got the message wrong, if you don't have all these systems lined up correctly, if it's not simple scales, man, that is one thing I've learned. Like
Yeah.
we do fitness, we do physical therapy, we do athletic training services, we do consults, right? That is what we do. As far as we're good on our message, and I've learned to say no to certain things now that like get outside of those messages. And as long as
Yeah.
we consistently do those things properly and we don't get weird outside of those things, basically
Yeah.
that allows us to really grow and scale properly and allows that communication you're just talking about to stay on point. Because I think what
Well, and
happens is, yeah, what happens,
the
say
customer
add
doesn't
another
want to get
service.
the
Yeah.
yeah, the customer doesn't want to get confused either. They
No.
want you to solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
And this is, when we're talking about that experience, it needs to be like your used car salesman. Don't give them three more problems,
Yeah.
right? Like, don't say, know what your competition is doing. Know, especially in the PT world, but
You'll make them
really
feel
any
stupid.
healthcare.
Yeah, don't make them feel
Yeah,
stupid. That was one that happened today, right? It was like, "Oh, you're a mechanic. Maybe you need to get a new mechanic." All right, sick. Now I feel stupid. Thanks.
yeah,
Right? So it's like, "Oh, maybe you need to get a new physical therapist." Like that's something that happens, by the way, that we can't control. If
oh
the
yeah,
person if the per A great thing that I think of every physical therapist should really consider is to make the person feel a little bit better after the first visit, right? Like I
yeah,
definitely focus more on pain relief in that first session way more than I did when I was in my career, right? I was like, oh, like
hmm,
total knee replacement. I'm like, you got to get TKE, you got to get more bend, right? Like as a new grad, and now I look back and I cringe worthy at that. I'm like, no,
yeah,
let's try and make them feel good today while we're also getting some range of motion and progression. Because quite
yeah.
frankly, in a customer service perspective, I can be the greatest physical therapist ever. If the person doesn't want to come and see me because some friends saying, why are you going to that guy that tortures you? It doesn't really matter, right? Like it's not going to
Yeah.
matter. And so just that's a good example. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that our profession doesn't necessarily think of it as a customer service profession, but we are so customer service oriented. We have to be,
So
that's
what
the
are
only way to
some of the
scale it.
things what are some of the things you do at Evolution? And not to put you on the spot here because we didn't talk about this before. But like what are some of the things you do at a multi-site clinic to ensure that the customer, that continuum kind of happens, right? That like customer experience stays as like organic as you want it to be. Like, are there meeting schedules? Like, are you having different departments interact with different departments? Like, what are you guys doing to make sure that everyone's kind of rowing in the same direction?
One thing, I'll give them the plug, but one thing, I mean, WebPT is not the greatest company on the planet for every single thing they do. But one thing that I think that WebPT has really given us an ability to do is WebPT Reach for those. And again, there's different apps, I'm sure different things to do. This is what we use with WebPT and our EMR. WebPT Reach has been really effective for our clinics in that it follows up and has like a script that basically sends people's experiences. It's a retention software. It basically sends people experience surveys. How are you doing? What did you think? Blah, blah. I actually went through it because I had one of my PTs treat me for something, went through my insurance, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, look at this. I'm going through the experience. It's nice because it checks in on you. And so
Hmm.
that's one thing I would really recommend, especially at scale, because like I don't know everybody, but I know all the bad reviews. I can tell you that when I get a bad review through
Yeah.
that, it comes straight to me. And so I can head it off and call the person, email them, help trying to like basically convert who might have been lost, curtail somebody who might smash us on social media. Cause even if they're like, listen, I didn't like this or blah, blah, I didn't like that, but like totally get them really sorry about that.
Yep.
If there's anything we can do, I'm happy to help, or like, you know what I mean? And if they're really mad, we're like, oh no, I don't want to do this, and I don't know what. But there's these patients out there. The bigger you get, they're
Yeah.
eventually going to get to your clinic, and
Yeah.
so it's like, well, you can point them in the right direction. It really does curtail a lot of that. I will say I really like that piece of software. If you don't have WebPT or there's other softwares out there, I'm sure there are. We could look at other ones, but that's why I love email marketing in general because I think email marketing can do that too.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of good traction in that regard.
So a lot of stuff on the automation side then,
Yeah, I
right?
think go high level, right? Like we've talked about go high level a bunch. Like you could leverage that in that way, I'm sure, right? And in
Yeah.
terms of being like, every new client, you could do that. Like you could create what's like a client journey, right, through
Yeah.
that process, and they would get automated emails and text messages, basically saying like, hey, just want to check in, see everything's going, blah blah blah. And like for you, Owen, that's not a big deal right now because you can talk with people while you do that process. For me, I
Yeah.
don't treat every single patient that comes to the door anymore. So I would tell business owners, you want to implement that system before you hire anybody else. because
Yeah.
now if that's just part of the front desk person's job, to just put them in that funnel, it'll help a lot. So I think that's a
Well,
really good way to do that.
and I'll tell you from my history with corporate PT and developing leadership mentorship programs. So mentorship
Yeah,
programs where we develop leaders, right? We go the exact opposite of where you're at, right? With not so much that those are bad, because honestly, those are amazing when we were using them, right? We were using
yeah,
that follow up, that retention software. But what we would do is we would very intentionally interact the different groups. So we would take a clinic manager, we would take a front office, and we would always have the marketing people come to our meetings, right? So that they would understand and they would hear the operational discussions, right? So they would hear, hey, it's hard for me to get somebody with this insurance scheduled at this time because their insurance provided transportation doesn't show up, right? Or, hey, this doctor is sending us people that don't want to show up because all they do is say, you got to do this for the pills, right? Like
yeah,
that allowed marketing to then say, okay, when we walk into their office, we need to be able to say these four things, or maybe we look at a different office that we drop flyers at. It also allowed our front office, which was kind of like our sales team, like they would be the ones fielding the, hey, do you guys take my insurance phone calls? It allowed them to see what is marketing telling these people, right? What's our place in the community? And then they would be able to hear from the staff PTs, like this is what's going on. So like those, if you're talking in a clinic level, that's good. And just meeting cadence is always, an issue for people. I usually tell people higher up, like at your level, let your managers determine the meeting cadence because they know their team. They know their team if they're all analytical or if they're all like, I need a meeting every 3 days to make sure I'm on track. And they'll tell you because you don't want to overload them. So, like, that level of trusting your managers as the second or third level manager, right? Where, if you're a CEO or even if you're regional, right? Those are the things that kind of carry through the experience as best you can so that the customer slash patient slash whoever, at least when they're interacting with people, everybody kind of knows what each other's doing. And then, like you said, having that follow up so that you as the manager and the leader can say like, okay, where are we at organizationally, right? Where are we enterprise wide? So there's the nuts and bolts of management, like what I was just talking about. And then there's cool stuff that if you can leverage technology, um, they can really kind of take it to outer space, right? In
I
terms of
you know, and
making
it's
sure you
funny.
get that retention.
Yeah, and you just attacked it from a different position than I was like not thinking about at the time. But you're
No,
absolutely
no, it's not
right,
that you don't
right?
do it. It's just that like
Yeah, no, no,
there's
no.
so
I,
much to it. We could
but I
do
want
4 podcasts on this.
Well, that's right. That's exactly what you beat me to it, right? What I was going to say that Owen said that was so important is building infrastructure within your business through the right people. Physical
Yeah,
therapy, businesses in general are so employee centric. So, like, I would think like the difference is when you just start out, like and I love what you said about finding leaders too, because I think something that happens in physical therapy clinics, and I've watched it happen in places that I worked or in places that I've gone, is like I remember being 6 months out of school and being promoted to a clinical director, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in here. I was like, I don't know.
I'm
Like,
sure a
I'm
lot of our
supposed to be getting
listeners have
mentored.
had that experience.
You're exactly. So the reality is like when it comes to like the directing and the business and the growth of that aspect, that's a reality of like what happens because of scarcity, right? We don't know that we don't have the
Yeah,
right talent. We don't know how to get people in. We don't have enough patients, right? So again, until you're hitting $1 million business, you focus on patient acquisition.
yeah,
But I think you can focus on customer service nose to tail. I love that. Like the customer service nose to tail as a beginner. And then I mean, really depending on what your business looks like, you can scale it to $1 million in revenue pretty quickly with a smaller office with 3 to 4 to 5 therapists, depending on what you're charging if you're doing insurance or cash. And I think by
yeah.
doing that and focusing on your niche and focusing on really good stuff, you can build nicely and keep that customer service high. And you'll just have sustainable growth over time. It'll take longer, but you'll never be in this like bad volatile spot. So I think that's a really nice way to do it.
Yeah, and if you're looking to grow your PT business, Physio Growth provides the mentorships and tools that you need for success. Visit school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group and unlock your practice's potential. And Brian, I mean, we just had one of our mastermind calls earlier today, and somebody doing that, right?
Yeah.
She's making a pretty penny, and she's able to kind of do what she needs to do. But we're as we do these things, as we build in this mastermind group, the beauty of it is that it's a group, right? It's not
Yeah,
just us sitting here and saying this is
that's
what
the
we
value.
know. Like that's what the podcast is for,
Yeah,
right?
we'll add
Um,
trainings and we'll add stuff and we'll put in different things and we'll keep building. But the mastermind's a great spot where we can all get together and do it and grow. And that to me, that's why we've had people join more so is they're like, well, I really want to grow my business and there's no one else to do it to help me do that. And that this is what masterminds do, right? They grow from that perspective. And it's $99 a month. That is very inexpensive. So you're talking about less than $25 a meeting per year. So if
yeah,
you, one of the comments in the mastermind group was, wow, this advice just saved me about probably a couple $1,000s. This is great in the first meeting.
yeah,
So like, again, if
yeah,
you think about $99 a month, it's going to work. Even if one meeting gives you that couple golden BBs you need to save the money or make more money. So yeah, that's
yeah,
why we did it. Like we talked about earlier in my middle read there is the evolution of trying to help you grow as you build.
yeah. There you go, man. We want
Cool.
more. We want much better PT out there all across the world, and the
Love it.
way that we do that is be much better at business.
Exactly. That's it. It's the reality of it.
All
Cool,
right, my
brother.
friend. Well, we are all good for today, my friend. Have a good Thursday.
You too, buddy. See ya.
Yep. See you.